Alright, well, government has been keeping up with its work and stealing from people, ruining innocent people's lives, and generally behaving in a way that would be looked at as morally reprehensible if anyone else ever did such a thing. So just with air travel alone from 2000 to 2016, it is reported that the Customs and Border Protection, as well as other DHS agencies, have conducted at least 30,574 currency seizures at airports, taking over $2 billion in total. And many of these seizures happen to people who are, of course, never charged with a crime, or if they are, it's generally a ridiculous crime, as about half of all the seizures at airports were from simply failing to report that you were traveling internationally with $10,000 or more. Now, it is possible they had that money to hire an international hitman or something, but I do doubt that quite a bit. Take, for instance, this story of a woman who wasn't even traveling internationally, but from North Carolina to Florida. They were going to go gambling. They had $43,000. They learned that a relative passed away, so they immediately made plans to fly back to Florida. Upon arrival at the airport, they get questioned by the TSA and eventually the DEA. The DEA, who is the worst when it comes to outright theft of innocent people. And eventually they have their money taken away from them. They have it stolen, and they are not even charged with a crime. So what does that tell you? That tells you, from the perspective of the government, they see someone with some cash, they have no evidence of any wrongdoing whatsoever. All they have to go on is mere suspicion that they might be up to something because they have $43,000 on them. They obviously have no drugs on them. They haven't been communicating with any known criminals. They don't have a history of drug smuggling or working for the cartels. They've got nothing except cash on them. Whether you want to say that's suspicious or not is besides the point. That should not be proof enough to justify stealing that money, because there's no two ways about it. That is precisely what the DEA did here, and precisely what the DEA has done many other times to many other people. All they know is there is a large amount of money. That's a bit uncommon, so let's just steal it from these people without charging them with a crime because we have no real evidence. Now, with this instance of civil asset forfeiture, there was apparently a crime that was committed. A dumb crime that is asinine, which is usually the case with most laws on the books, but there was a crime nonetheless. But the punishment is way out of hand, of course. This guy owns a truck, and he has a magazine for a gun in the vehicle containing 5 rounds. He offers to leave it behind when Customs and Border Protection find it, and they felt this made him into an international arms smuggler. I don't sell guns or ammo, but I am not sure if you have a viable business if all you are smuggling and selling is 5 rounds. Maybe my logic is faulty, but I can't help but think that. So anyway, what do? They steal his truck. Or rather, I should say, he forfeited his truck to them because of his actions. Again, he's not charged with a crime. He pays a $3,800 cash bond for the privilege of trying to get his truck back, and for 2 years, he isn't able to even have a hearing. So because he had 5 rounds in a magazine in his truck, his life is made hectic and chaotic, and a valuable possession is stolen from him by the government. It's really actually rather sickening. And then another similar situation happened to this man, Kevin McBride, in which his girlfriend allegedly conducted a $25 marijuana transaction with his truck. So the government takes his $15,000 truck. And he was a handyman that needed the truck for his livelihood, and it was his only means of transportation. And despite the charges being dropped against his girlfriend, they held on to the truck. So again, it's not a big deal enough to prosecute the case, but it is a big enough deal to just take people's property. Although in this case he eventually did get his truck back, but not before being told he has to pay a $1,900 ransom for the truck. Thankfully, when they were threatened with a lawsuit, considering it was unconstitutional to require property owners to prove their innocence, he did get his truck back without having to pay the $1,900. And at this point, it was reported that the deputy county gave the car back without any explanation because they want to save face, probably. As again, they throw someone's life into turmoil over nothing, and then when there is pushback, they relent and cower, and they don't want to have to answer for what they did. So I've done videos on this topic before, and I sometimes feel like I'm reading unfunny Onion articles because it's just so blatantly obvious how corrupt and demented the government is. It's almost as if they're not even trying to hide the racket that they're running. It's out there in plain sight as to how morally bankrupt they are, and they could not care less about private property rights, decency, morality, ethics, nor do they care at all about whether or not what they do harms innocent people, which it of course does on a routine basis. It is ridiculous, and civil asset forfeiture needs to come to an immediate end. But that's all for right now. Like and subscribe, and take it easy.